Welcome to another edition of the A-List Podcast. I'm your host, Sherrod Blakely, with Kwani A, Lunis. All that here was the A stands for. And my man, Gary Washburn. What's going on, people?
What's up?
Hi.
See, for those who wonder, like, why the hell are they opening up with
Gary's
laughter
my
and all
ally.
that? Because we've been clowning each other off camera.
No,
because Kwani,
you've been clowning me. Not we've been clowning each other.
This is true. Guilty. Kwani brought up the fact that she finally got rid of her Christmas tree, and I noticed that she had a vertically efficient do today, and I was just like, damn. Now we know where the Christmas tree went. Anyway, enough messing with Kwani. Kwani's my girl. I love you, Kwani. Love you, Kwani. And love what the Celtics are doing. They're actually balling out. Wins in 4 of the last 5 games, something like that. Average margin has been by 30 or some ridiculous number. I'm gonna just throw it at you, Gary Washburn. I mean, who the hell is this Boston Celtics team we watching out there now balling out as if they trying to win a chip or something? What? Why is this team playing so much better right now?
Well, I think once level of competition, they haven't played a bunch of great teams. But they've also struggled with teams who haven't been good. So you got to credit them for taking care of business against the teams they should. But I also think they're just playing well together. Shots are falling. This obviously team is better when the 3-point shot is going down. And that's been the case all the games except Atlanta. But they're just taking care of business. This was the part of the schedule that they thought, except maybe Miami, people didn't think that'd be an easy game because obviously they were shorthanded, but people thought that they could, take advantage of this stretch with New Orleans and, the Washington game and put some wins together and start to kind of build something. And it sounds like they're doing it now. Obviously, Wednesday's game is a big one. And then they got a tricky little road trip to Detroit and Orlando where both those teams play really hard, although they're not good, and those are the type of teams that can trip the Celtics up, but they have a chance to pile some wins together and do something. So I say, and Marcus Smart's been remarkable since his return from the injury and the COVID protocol. He is getting the ball, whipping the ball around the court, selectively shooting, doing everything he's supposed to be doing.
I'm convinced he listens to the podcast because I think it was just last week when you called him out for doing too much, and now it seems that he is a little more level-headed. How do you think he could continue to keep up this momentum moving forward?
Well, he's just got it to be like what Ime told, like push the pace up, keep pushing the pace, keep the ball going. Don't walk the ball up the floor, let the defense set. And just make sound decisions. There's going to be plays, as we've talked about before, where Marcus tries to be globetrotters, tries to do too much, tries to be like LaMelo and just do stuff that it's just like, man, it's not you. Like, just stick to the game plan, make the solid pass, try some things here and there. It's okay. Take a chance here and there, but just stick to solid basketball. And then he'll be as valuable as he ever has been because, one, he's not a scorer, so him being that third scorer, you don't want that. You want him to be a distributor. You want to make defensive plays. You want him doing all the little things. And that's what the difference. The Celtics don't have a lot of big things that have been keeping them from winning. It's been really a lot of little things. Marcus keeps doing the little things that makes him a better team.
But here's the thing, though, Gary. Marcus, a lot of what he's doing now, he's done in spurts throughout the season, throughout the course of games. As far as getting guys involved and things like that. To me, the biggest difference of late is that they're not keeping the ball out of his hands in the fourth quarter as much as I think they've done throughout the course of the season. When you look at the NBA and you look at the top you look at the top teams in the NBA, they all have point guards who are on the floor making plays down the stretch. When you look at the top assists per game in the fourth quarter, you're going to see names like LeBron James. You're going to see names like Chris Paul. You're going to see guys who are leading teams that are in that top tier in the NBA. And the reason they're there is because they're getting opportunities to make plays for others when the game matters most. And I think far too often the Celtics have relied on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to go iso ball in the fourth quarter, which they're good at that. But here's the thing. By the time the fourth quarter rolls around, pretty much everything you like to do, you're not going to be able to do because they've seen it for 30 some odd minutes. So you have to go to a counter. You have to do something different. And Marcus being more of a facilitator, I think that's huge. This season, Marcus is averaging like basically 1 assist per game in the fourth quarter. And for your starting point guard to be dropping 1 dime in the most pivotal quarter of the game on average, you got to do better than that. And I don't think it's so much that Marcus doesn't want to. I think it's a combination of him not being on the floor as much as I think he should be in the fourth quarter, and him not being in position to make those other guys better. So I think the last 4 or 5 games, to Gary's point, since he's been back, he's been given that opportunity to be that playmaker. And again, Marcus, bless his heart, he is who he is. I mean, he is not going to remind you of Chris Paul. He is not going to be Rajon Rondo, but he's a good enough player to make plays down the stretch. And if we're keeping it 100, he's your best playmaker by far. And if your best playmaker isn't getting a chance to make plays when the game matters most, what the hell are you doing?
And it should be noted, he did have a career-high 12 assists in that win over the Pelicans. So it does show that he is trying to improve, I think, on that end, because that is one of his biggest strengths for this team.
And it takes a lot of the heat off of Jalen and Jason to do what Ime wants them to do, which is be playmakers. And both of those guys have made progress this year in that area. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Jason, much more than Jalen. But having a guy like Marcus down the stretch who can do a lot of the things he does for the first 3 quarters, getting an opportunity to do it in the fourth, it's important for this team to give Marcus that opportunity and, to me, put him in a sink or swim situation. Either you're going to rise to the occasion in the fourth quarter and lead this team with your facilitating, or you're going to sink, and then we got to talk about your role. But it seems of late he has been given that opportunity, and his teammates have responded. And that's another story altogether about teammates responding to him, because I don't think they've done as good a job with that as they should. I mean, they treat him like he's an old man at the front door who don't know what he's talking about. And he says he's not that much older than them. It's as if the things that he values, they don't necessarily understand how they need to value those things too and work to make those things happen. Marcus said all from the jump, let me be that dude. Mm-hmm. Just give me the keys to the Bentley or to the Maybach or to the SUV, whatever the hell ride you want to rock with. I can get us where we need to get to. And they were like, we'll give it to you, but we're going to give it to you on a rental basis. Like it's a rental car. Like you can have it for some time, but you're going to have to return the keys to Jalen and Jason in the fourth quarter roll around. Shouldn't be like that. I love what he's doing. I love what those guys are doing because they have figured out of late how to play off one another and be effective. And to Gary's point, these teams that they've been beating have been a little bit undermanned. But if you really start looking at their roster, they've lost a lot of games when they didn't have 1 or 2 or 3 of their top 6, 7 guys. So I can't really lock into the idea that, they're just winning because they're playing teams that are undermanned, because they lost a lot of games to teams because they were undermanned. So to me, the law of average is starting to play out a little bit. Bottom line is this: they are looking much more like a team that actually knows how to play together, knows how to compete, understands what has to happen in the fourth quarter, and last but certainly not least, get the damn dub. That's what they're doing better than anything else.
What about the Jays? Let's talk about them, because they've been having a phenomenal last few games as well, scoring-wise.
It's been like tag team.
Right.
Just,
they can't play together, though.
But they can't play. They've been playing a game of tag. The tag team action that they've been putting on teams is crazy. What's the matter now, Gary?
Hey, Gary.
Were you about to do whoop, there it is?
No.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
No, I wasn't.
You were about to go tag team whoop, there it is.
No,
Sherrod. Oh, my goodness.
Gary.
Sherrod.
That's where your mind went, but it's okay, because at least someone thought about it.
Gary. Anyway, you
go
were
ahead,
about
Gary.
to go whoop, there it is.
No, I was about to go somewhere, but whoop, there it is was not where I was going to go.
Right.
Although that would have been applicable.
That would have been
to this particular conversation, but I wasn't going to go there.
Maybe we can name that this podcast episode. That's a future
Whoop,
thought.
there it could have been. Whoop, there it could have been.
Finish your thought.
Yeah,
Gary is thoroughly upset.
Gary's clearly No, but they've been playing well as a tag team as far as one of them has been controlling the pace. The other one hasn't just been sitting by, just like bro man chilling on the side. He's been actively engaged, waiting for his opportunity to take over. And in the fourth quarter, they become a major problem because if you're worried about Jalen scoring and you're worried about Tatum scoring, and you got Marcus Smart who is not looking to score, he's looking to facilitate. Damn, they become a very difficult team to beat. But to my thinking is this, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. I'm not sold that they've found a secret sauce to get over the hump. Because remember, this team, we're still looking for this team to win more than 3 games in a row. We're damn near at the All-Star break, and they've yet to have a winning streak longer than 3 games. So they clearly have had an issue with trying to build off of success that they've been able to have. But when you're beating teams by 30 some odd points, I don't care how bad or banged up they is. That's not normal. That is just not normal. So I give them props for the way that they're handling their business, but they need to continue to build off of that because up to this point, they really haven't shown the ability to do that for any extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're beginning to find the symmetry that they've been looking for, and they're completely healthy. I think Al Horford's playing a little bit better. Robert Williams is hanging in and doing well ever since coming back from the birth of his son. Has been a real boost to the lineup. And
he got dunked on by Caleb Barton. No, that should never happen. But anyway, keep going.
Anyway, Sherrod, as a big man, you're going to get dunked on at times. It's going to happen.
It's inevitable.
You're going to get dunked on. That's
I'm just saying.
Caleb Martin is probably a candidate.
Everybody can't be Dikembe. Everybody can't be Dikembe.
Yeah, most improved player. So Caleb Martin has really gotten better. I mean, just on
better than his twin. But that's
on a side note. But I think that both of Jalen and Jason are just trying. They understand the how important this is right now. You got 30 games left in the season. Like, we're far beyond halfway through. Halfway through was 41 games. This is 30 now. The All-Star break is not the halfway point in the season. It's like the 2/3 point.
Yeah.
So they've got to jump on it now. They got to take advantage of beating bad teams. And, last year that was a real problem. They lost twice to the Pelicans last year. They lost twice to the Kings last year. So the fact that they beat the Pelicans and they beat the Kings and they went and wiped out Washington on the road, I thought that was a good win. Miami plays hard all the time. I thought, they didn't have enough manpower. So you can't really, that's a really, really quality win because it wasn't no Butler, no Lowry, no PJ Tucker, but it's still a win's a win's a win. You gotta keep it. I mean, in the league, it's just weird, folks. Denver went to Milwaukee and beat the Bucks by 36.
Like the snot out of them.
I mean, this is the way it is. I watched Cleveland had a 8-point lead at Detroit and got outscored 18-2 to end the game and lost at Detroit. You can't take anybody lightly, and anybody can beat. And I hate to sound like that; it's so cliche, but anybody can beat anybody. I mean, I was almost fainted when I saw that Nuggets Bucks score 36 at Milwaukee, and Giannis played in the damn game. Mm-hmm. The Nuggets who got 8 guys out. So the Celtics can't take anything for granted. They got to play hard. That game at New Orleans was tricky. The game, the Atlanta game, they kind of reverted to some old habits, but they also.
And Atlanta was playing some of the best basketball in the league at that point too.
Yeah, but it was the hero ball thing. I thought they were really close to taking the lead, and then Jason, Jalen, and Dennis Schroder decided, okay, let's start taking threes, and they weren't scoring through. They weren't hitting threes that night. They went 7 for 36 on threes. And they decided they wanted to make the big shot to give them the lead. Then all of a sudden they couldn't stop Bogdanovic, and then Trae Young got hot, and they couldn't do anything with John Collins. That's the thing about Robert Williams. I think he's got to take more pride in is not letting some of these bigs get off on him. There was one play against Atlanta where John Collins just backed him in and scored right over him.
Bully balled him.
Yeah, you can't. To me, Robert's got to take more pride into not saying he doesn't take pride, but just get that swagger, get that mean streak of no, I'm gonna foul the hell out this dude if this happens. This isn't. He's just not gonna spin and then just flip up a little layup in my face. But going back, they have been The Celtics been starting to play well. Obviously, the Charlotte game will tell us a lot. Charlotte came in a couple weeks ago, played well, beat the Celtics. That little tricky Detroit-Orlando trip, and then Brooklyn in Brooklyn. So it's going to be
No Kyrie.
interesting. Yeah, no Kyrie, and then I know they got I think another one with Detroit. They got Philly before the All-Star break. So you got some games on the docket that they should win, and they should no longer be flirting with 500. Like that's their goal. Like no more of this 500. We want to build. Listen, folks, they're 5.5 games out of the top in the East. That's crazy. 5.5.
Is.
You can name 7 to 8 games the Celtics should have won this year that they didn't. Like, seriously, 7 to 8 games at least. That
and you figure out of those games, you probably don't win half of them.
They're literally in first or second or third place in the East if they win Philadelphia at home. If that game they got outscored, the Milwaukee game on Christmas, the Portland game. That's just 3 off the top of my head. The Chicago game they led by 9. That's 4 games.
That's 4 wins
right there. And I haven't looked into December much of December and November. You're talking about so it's there for the taking. And we can talk about it because the trade deadline is coming up. Whether it is like they need another piece, we know that, and what do they need? But I think they're starting to show Brad Stevens we can win with some help. Like you don't have to break up the roster.
Well, let me ask you. Well, Kwani, go ahead.
You just said they don't have to break up the roster, but even though they've had this decent short sample size of a streak, I don't think that's enough to really get them that far in the East.
No, I
don't think this roster can do it.
No, and that's why I want to play a little game. We haven't really played games. We haven't played games. I want to play a game called Buy, Sell, or Rent.
Okay.
Which, if you live in the metropolitan Boston area, you are you're probably doing one of these. You're renting, most of the time. But we've talked a lot about how well this team is playing, and it's undeniable. The last 4 wins have been by an average of 30.5 points per game, which is incredible. The Celtics that we've seen lately, is this who they really are? Are you buying that? Are you selling that, or you want to rent it?
I'll rent it. Okay. Oh, did Gary have an answer?
Go ahead, Kwani.
Oh, I'm going to rent because, like I mentioned, this sample size is too small. I don't think we've seen this consistently enough. As you mentioned, Sherrod, this team has the potential. We think they can do well, but I just need to see consistency. I feel as though I'm a broken record saying it, but I think with any 82-game season, it makes sense that there aren't going to always be perfect games. But even if it's coming down to a really close loss, I just need to see more in the fourth where you can really close out a game. And even if you don't close it out, it's a close enough margin, not only on paper, but from the eye test that this team can potentially win. And I don't think we've seen that enough this season. It's either been blowout games or close losses, but there's just not enough effort at that last point, or just minor errors that shouldn't have happened that I think they've lost a lot of games to. And I'm not sold. I'm going to rent it for now because, again, the last few games have given me a little sliver of hope, at least for now.
Okay. What about you, Gary?
Okay, first, I want to do this. I got the Celtics schedule here.
Okay. Next 3 games?
Let's name the games that they probably should have won. Okay.
Oh, in the past?
Yes.
Okay.
Opening night at New York.
Win.
Absolutely.
Win.
Yeah.
The double overtime loss at Washington. That's 2.
Yeah, that's 2.
The Chicago game. 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Dallas game where Marcus Smart fouled in the to give Dallas the ball at the end, and Luka hit the 3 at the buzzer. That's 4.
Mm-hmm.
The 19-point blown lead at Cleveland. That's 5.
Well, we didn't know Cleveland was going to be this good, so maybe we'll.
Yeah, but they blew.
You up at 19? I don't care where you at.
17 in the fourth. You got to win that game.
Yeah, you got to win
absolutely.
that. That's 5.
Yeah.
Getting outscored like 16-2 to lose at San Antonio to end the game. 6. Mm-hmm. Let me see here.
If I'm picking up on the trend, you were saying they should be undefeated?
No. Philly game when they got outscored. Literally, I'm saying there's 10 games. The Philly game, when they got outscored 18-6 when Embiid went nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Another one right there. That's 7. The Milwaukee Christmas game, 8. The Minnesota game, 9.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness. The San Antonio game and Jalen missed the layup at the buzzer, 10. The blown 25-point lead at New York, 11.
The Trailblazers game last week,
12.
12
games. That's
and
12.
You figure
12 games.
And Gary,
you 7-5 in those games. You are literally like in third place. Isn't that crazy? 12 games. Like, I'm not talking about, well, they didn't lead in the fourth quarter or they lost. They made a run. Like, literally, like Jalen blowing the layup at the buzzer that could have tied it and sent it to overtime. Or getting outscored 16-2 by San Antonio down there and losing the game by 8. Like, games they literally blew.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, so, like, I'm with Kwani. Like, I need to see more. I need to see more poise. I need to see poise down the stretch in the fourth quarter. I need to see him win a tough game like Charlotte. You know, I need to see more because I just think they're you know, you don't. This team has a habit of resting on their laurels because I'll look at the schedule until the All-Star break. Charlotte, Detroit should win. Orlando should win.
Honestly, they could take Brooklyn too. KD's
at Brooklyn, yeah, it'll be tough, but they could.
Yeah.
Then Denver at home, that's a tough game. Do not, we saw what Denver did to Milwaukee. Atlanta at home on Super Bowl Sunday, tough game. At Philly and then Detroit. Like 2 against Detroit, Orlando, but then you got tricky ones. Brooklyn, Denver, Atlanta, Philadelphia. Like the Celtics could really build on this, or they could be back, go 4-4 or whatever it is, and still be 2 games over 500 at the break. Like they got to start really playing well against good teams. They need to win down in Philly. Like they need to show the Philly 70s they can beat the Sixers. They need to win at one of those games at Brooklyn or at Philadelphia. They just can't get slapped around by dudes in their division. The Knicks beat them. They've got to be better in these games. They can't keep getting punked by Philly and New York and Brooklyn. Like they've got to one of those 2 games. Like go down to Brooklyn on Tuesday night with Harden and beat the Nets with your full squad. There's be no KD, no Durant,
right.
No Kyrie. Like that's a game you should win. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I want to see. Like I'm with Kwani. I want to see like they've beaten Milwaukee, but I want to see a couple of wins, like 2 or 3 wins in a row against really good teams. That will get me like, okay, maybe it's different. And then we'll see what happens at the trade deadline. They get another shooter, they get someone else in here to help them, then I think that they can make a run.
Well, I'm going to have to go against the grain and believe that the Celtics that we're seeing now, I think we're going to see a similar version of this team throughout the course of the rest of the season. And here's why. Gary, as you pointed out, Gary, they got their whole crew intact. That's something that we weren't able to say a month or 6 weeks or longer ago about this team. There seemed to be 1 or 2 core guys seemingly out of the lineup for whether it's injuries, illness, health and safety protocol, but they have their full crew intact now. And if they were just like, kind of beating teams, I wouldn't feel the way I do. They're not just beating teams. They're beating the snot out of teams. I mean, they're taking kids' lunch money, mushing them in the face, stepping on their brand new starter jacket, and looking at them like, now what? What you got? What you gonna say? Nothing. They are crushing teams. And to me, they're not going to keep crushing teams like that. But the way that they're playing, they're going to be able to hold their own against anyone and everyone the rest of the way. Because, again, they've got all their pieces in place now. Guys seem to understand their roles on this team. Like, they finally figured out that Marcus Smart is actually a pretty good facilitator down the stretch. Jason Tatum, you still going to get your buckets. Brown, you still going to get your buckets. But he can put the buckets on your plate. You don't have to feed yourself. He can feed you. And that understanding is one of the main reasons why I think this team is going to continue to gain ground and probably wind up at the end of the day in that 4, 5, 6 conversation. To me, 4 is the apps. That is if everything and seemingly everything goes right. No more injuries, no more illnesses. They got their whole crew the rest of the way. That's best case scenario in my mind. But I do believe they're going to continue to play their way into the conversation of being one of those 4, 5, 6 teams. And that, to me, is frankly where they should be, because at the beginning of the season I thought they should be in that conversation when you have 2 all-stars both under the age of 25, and all you really need at that point is guys to understand their roles and execute their roles night in and night out. We're seeing more of that now, and that's why, again, I think this, what we're seeing now, we're going to see something fairly close to this for the rest of the season. They're not going to win all the games, obviously, but they're going to be in the hunt even against the better teams, if they continue to stay healthy and continue to play the way they have of late. And I think, again, because they're not bringing in new guys off of health and safety or injuries, they have the potential to be that good a team. So we've talked about how amazingly awesome the Boston Celtics have been. But as Gary so eloquently, pointed out, they still kind of need to make a little change with this roster. There's lots of different names that are being bantered about. And last week we talked a lot about the Sacramento Kings, one, because they were playing the Celtics, but also because they had some players whose names were being thrown out there. But since then, there have been some other reports about possible players that have been linked with the Celtics. And I want to start with you, Gary, and just get your thoughts on some of these guys. And Kwani chime in, obviously, afterwards. But Kevin Huerter from Atlanta was a name that we heard the last week and a half or so as someone that the Celtics kind of kicking the tires around a little bit about, and vice versa. How do you see him fitting, and particularly if, more likely than not, it'll cost you Marcus Smart to get him? Are you cool with that?
Which, by the way, I just found out last week that his nickname was Red Velvet, and I'm all here for it. But
that's smooth.
It was so smooth. I was like, Twitter was calling him Red Velvet, and I felt like I was late to the game.
I'm gonna let y'all talk about this because I'm like, me and Kat. You, Gary, jump in.
Gary,
jump in.
Take the mic.
Yeah, please. Kevin Huerter is a solid player, a good 3-point shooter. It all depends on what Atlanta is. One of those organizations that they're in a tricky position because now they're hot. Okay, first, remember they were 17-25 a couple of weeks ago. Nate McMillan ball wasn't working anymore. They weren't playing any defense. They were a terrible West Coast road trip where they were just getting blown out, and it looked like they were done. And now they done won 7 of 8 before losing the other night to Toronto, and they're back into the play-in or whatever. It looks like now Washington's is the team that's sinking. So I think Atlanta's plans might have changed in terms of their approach to this deadline, because now they got a chance to make a run. I think they're engaged when Collins and Gallinari and Bogdanovic and Trae Young and DeAndre Hunter and Huerter are all engaged, and Capella and the kid from USC, the backups, they're a pretty damn good club. And I think, like the Celtics, that's the thing about the trade deadline. I can look at the standings. From 1 to 12, there's 8 games. The way I look at it, there's 12 teams competing for 10 spots, okay? Because the Knicks and the Wizards are a half game out of the play-in, okay? So because you put Indiana, Detroit, and Orlando, they're done, okay? They're not, doubtfully they're going to make a playoff run. So 12 teams for 10 spots. Do the Knicks, are they sellers? How important is it to make the playoffs? And when the East is so close, 8 games separate 1 and 12, you got a lot of teams that think they got hope, right? Mm-hmm. So their plans for the trade deadline might not be to be sellers. Or they could do a major move where they, like the Knicks, want to trade, get a star in and move Julius Randle. It could be some major stuff going on to just swap stars. So I think this could be a fascinating deadline, because what happened in the East is everybody's starting to even out. They're all eating each other up. Milwaukee's had ups and downs. Brooklyn's lost a couple games in a row. Miami's now lost 2 in a row. Philadelphia's playing well. Cleveland ain't going nowhere. Whatever you talk about, Sherrod, the top 6, the Celtics are going to have to bump one of those out. Cleveland, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Miami, and what's the other team? Not Charlotte.
Chicago.
Sorry, Chicago. They're going to, we're not even talking about Charlotte. Charlotte's 7th, okay? Charlotte's 7th and got a bunch of home games left. Watch out for the Hornets making a run because they got a bunch of home games remaining in their schedule. But if I'm any team on those top 10, they might not be sellers like we think. Atlanta might be like, okay, we want Marcus Smart, and so like they're going to want to upgrade their roster too. Yeah. So you look to the West, the Sacramento, and I look at the West, and you got Houston, they're out of it. But shoot, literally, New Orleans is 2.5 out the play-in. You know what I'm saying? Sacramento 3.5. Not saying they're gonna do it, but these teams that are desperate for the playoffs, the only teams that are out of it completely, to me, are Oklahoma City and Houston. Mm-hmm. So this is what the league wanted, folks. The league wanted more parity and more competitive just when they added the extra 2 spots. So now ain't nobody sellers. Like there's 4 teams or 5 teams in the NBA out of 30 that you're like, okay, they should be sellers. Indiana's a team I would target. Karis LeVert, Domantas Sabonis, like TJ Warren. That's a team I think people are going to give a lot of calls to because I think they're ready to break that up and just start fresh because they're not winning.
They have. And I can tell you a lot of those guys you mentioned are prominently on the trading block. You mentioned TJ Warren, who I love forever and a day because he gets buckets. That's literally what he does.
He went to NC State.
NC State, yes. And I love NC State. Shout out to the Wolfpack. Wolfpack! Yeah. The thing about him is that he's hurt, and you don't know what you're going to get, but he's also going to be hitting free agency this summer. And to me, if I'm just keeping it real, I like the idea of bringing in a guy who ain't going to play, who's going to hit free agency, because when it comes time to negotiate that new deal, you don't have the kind of leverage, bro, that you would want, because I haven't seen you out on the court in a minute. So we have a little bit more runway to play with in terms of getting a deal done that for the team, I think is to their benefit, to their advantage. But back to your point, Kevin Huerter is a good player, but if it's going to cost me Marcus Smart, I don't think I want to pay that. And here's why. The very reason that Gary pointed out, that team, there's such great parity. Your Celtics team is finally healthy. This is their team. These are the guys that they thought they were going to be playing with all season long. And they've only had maybe 10, 15 games maybe together where they've had their entire allotment of core guys healthy, able-bodied, ready to contribute. And lo and behold, they're winning. They're starting to actually figure out how to play well together and figuring out how they can play off of each other and with each other. And to break that up now, I'm not sure if that's the move you're going to make, especially, again, there's such closeness between top to bottom. I mean, everyone, listen, before you would have a clear top tier, middle of the pack, and everyone else in the middle. That middle class now is huge. And because it's so huge, there isn't this sense that if I just add one piece, we're going to be in the top 3. Hell, we may be in the top 3 with the crew we got, and we don't have to do anything with us. And so I think this trade deadline is going to be a dud. The only thing that would make this thing significant, not only for the Celtics but just for the NBA in general, is if someone finds a home for Ben Simmons. Which again, I just don't think that's going to happen. His camp has made it pretty clear what they want to do, and for Ben, it's a lose-lose situation. If you come back, you caved in. You stay out, your value is not going to go up because no one really knows what you can do. And so, tough spot for him, but fortunately for the Celtics, that ain't y'all problem.
Yeah, I think Schroder would be an asset to the Celtics too, but that only is valuable if you're not getting rid of Marcus Smart, because I think a thing that Schroder brings to that Hawks team, you look at that game Monday night against Toronto, and he scores 16 in the first half. And yeah, you're surrounded by talented other players, but he seems like the type, like Marcus Smart, where if you need that scoring power, he's willing to just take the team up and do what's needed for that team. And I think the Celtics could use another scorer in that sense. But again, I don't think Atlanta would be willing to give him up without getting someone that the Celtics also see as valuable. So it's a dub on that end. I don't think that trade would work out at all.
It is. And the thing that I'm just kind of coming back to more and more is with the Celtics scouting department, it's not that they can't recognize talent. They just kind of decide on the wrong talent to keep and the wrong talent to let go. Miami got smashed. We know that. They lost by 30 points. But there's a kid by the name of Mr. Strus out there who was a Celtic on paper only. Never played a game for him. But He dropped 9 threes. I don't give a damn what level you playing at. You hit 9 threes, you are a baller. You are the fact that you have a clear void in your roster, which is shot making, and a cat that you had on your crew on paper drops 9 threes, and we're not even going to talk about Desmond Bane. We ain't going to even bring him up. Well, I just did. And I know Gary Washburn, you had a chance. Gary shaking his hand. I'm about to tee you up, Gary. I'm about to tee you
up. You
just
did bring him up.
Right.
I just said that.
Person that I won't name.
That's funny.
I brought him up.
I ain't going to bring up all your mess ups you did back 3 years ago. I ain't going to bring that up. You just did bring it up.
I will bring that up. The reason I was bringing him up, Gary Washburn, is because you had a chance to talk with him. Yeah. And I'm giving you the floor to let the peoples know what he had to say about, obviously, the all the talk about him and Boston and what could have should have been. You had a chance to talk to him about that.
Oh yeah, he's fully aware that. Obviously he was never a Celtic. Like Boston traded to pick the Memphis before the draft, but he's fully aware. One, he's definitely aware that they chose Nesmith over him. He pointed that out, and I think everybody knew. And these guys know their competition probably when they work out for teams and who they're working out with. And he knew that Nesmith and him were considered "quote unquote" the best shooters in the draft. And he knew that they took Nesmith 14th, and he fell to 30. And now Nesmith is trying to get on the floor. How you gonna put this, Gary? And Desmond Bane, I think, dropped 28 last night at Philly. So you know what, Sherrod, I'm not going to rip the Celtics. The Strus thing is this. This is the problem with the Celtics, and it's not that they gave up on Strus. One, they just botched the whole thing with their two ways with Tremont and Taco. One, they kept Taco too long. It was nice, and I would have done it too because Taco sold jerseys. Did all the
I see more Taco now than any other Celtic when I turn on the damn TV. See them Arbella commercials.
Nothing against Taco tried. It wasn't anything personal with Taco. But if I'm a businessman and Taco's at Summer League, and you was at that Summer League, Tacos for Summer League, everybody's chanting his name, going nuts.
To see him.
Yes, he was a mega star. I would have kept him too and saw what happened. It's just that Tremont roster spot, because you give Taco the marketing aspect. Hey, we need to make some money. I ain't gonna tell Wick Gruspek, hey Wick, don't try to make another $5 million or don't try hey, I ain't in his pocket. So if he says, Gary, it's butts in the seats up in Portland, butts in the seats at Boston. When Tremont was the one I felt like they wasted, and he's a good kid. He just wasn't ready, and maybe he will be. But Strus, remember, bounced around. He went to Chicago. The Bulls gave up on him for a minute. So it's not like Strus immediately became a star or a shooter. Now, if you look at a guy like Sam Hauser, the Celtics are trying to, I think they're like, listen, he's not ready, but give him a year or two and he can maybe become a guy like Strus, where he's a pure shooter. Like we talked about last night, Miami does a great job at developing players.
They do.
Look at Gabe Vincent, who played last night. Caleb Martin, they brought in, is playing well. Literally, Strus, Kyle Guy, Miami makes good decisions on their roster, but they also go through a lot of guys too. They make mistakes like anybody else. But the Celtics, the Strus thing, now that he hit 9 threes, look, you're like, well, the Celtics held. But first of all, it was 2 years ago. Strus went to Chicago. That didn't work out either. Then Miami, then he went to the G League and then worked his way. They were just patient with him, and it's paying off. The Celtics blew their two-way spots. Now I think they're doing what they should do. They get a kid who looks like, he's not ready to be a shooter yet, but give Hauser a year or two, maybe not this season, but next season. I mean, not next season, but maybe, you hold on and you give him you hope he competes for a roster spot next year, and then he can be that light-up shooter because he's hit 8 or 9 threes in the G League this year. Hauser's done well. It's just he's probably not ready for the NBA spotlight. So, but I do think teams like Miami are better at developing their players and make better decisions at picking some of their guys, quote unquote, off the street than the Celtics are. Because if you look at it, Tremont Waters is not in the league. I think he signed like a 10-day hardship with Washington. Like, I don't think he's in the league. Taco's back in the G League. Like, you don't want to sign G League. You don't want to sign two-way guys that aren't NBA, eventually NBA. You want to give them that year and a half or whatever and have them become a guy who could really help your bench. People ask why Jalen and Jason don't have help. It's because the Celtics haven't drafted well. Yeah. Carson Edwards was supposed to help them. Shimmy was supposed to help them. Tremont and Taco, like not those guys, but those slots were supposed to be of help. And they haven't. And so everyone, well, why don't Jason and Jason have help? It is player development has been fallen very short.
Yeah, and it's kind of forced the Celtics to obviously try to jerry rig this roster on the fly. Getting guys who you hope can fill the holes before they become craters. Essentially, one of the things that Brad Stevens has shown an affinity for is to go back in time, bringing the oldest but the goodies. Which brings us to my guy, Daniel Theis. Because I know Gary loves Daniel Theis. I love Daniel Theis. Gary really doesn't, I don't think. But here's the thing about Theis, though. Because, again, there was some talk that the Celtics
were going to trade?
Trade?
Like, what about Theis? Like, coming back to Boston?
Yes. What the hell? What to be the godfather of our spiritual child? What do you think? What do you think I'm talking about?
Like Vitor Favarani wasn't available. Like Sime Erden is occupied. Like Ante Zizic wouldn't answer the phone. Like
the dancing bear is busy. The dancing bear is busy.
Like Theis has 3 more years in his contract.
At a very reasonable rate.
Yeah, he signed a 4-year contract. I mean, you want to take that money on?
Me personally,
I don't care if it's $9 million.
But he's not my Banky. You see what I'm saying? He's not my Banky. Brad loves Daniel Theis, as you know.
Yes,
you know this. So, if they made a trade for Daniel Theis, would you be shocked?
Who are we trading?
Yes,
I said we them.
You'd be shocked?
Yes, because he's got 3 more years left in his deal. Now I don't know if like the last year is guaranteed or not, but he signed a 4-year 36 or something like that with the Rockets, and he's not playing. It ain't worked out. Just like as we talked about, guess who's on the trade block? Evan Fournier. Shocker, because the Knicks paid him $78 million, and so sometimes the best moves are the ones you don't make. Brad passed up on that. Now Evan's on the trade block. So,
yeah, that's his. What's the kid that played for Miami that Danny was willing to trade the entire world for?
Oh, Justice Winslow.
Justice Winslow. Yep.
Yes, final year of. Thank you, Amit. Final year of Theis' contract, a club option. So 2 more years left this year and next year. You don't want to commit money past because you want to bring in another max guy and you want to leave some flexibility for any guy that might come up, or that's a tough one to take on. And it's not like Theis is young. He's not saying he's old, but I think he's
you just
30.
did.
He's not. No, there's a difference between young.
He's not
and
young.
Old.
If you're not young, then what are you?
There's something in between, not young and not old, like mid-career.
He's like youthfully old.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean,
what?
Exactly, Kwani. What?
We'll look up a word. We'll look at the source for that one. But I get what you mean.
Maturely young. Maturely young. You're right. I just want to get a reaction.
He just wanted to get Gary fired up because he knew he was going to.
I'm not fired up. I like Daniel. I don't think they could have.
29. So
I think they moved him. I think the trade of him was a real mistake to Chicago. Just to get under the cap was a real mistake. Right. Their defense suffered, but I also think now you got Robert Williams flourishing. Like, what's the use? I mean, now if you can get rid of, but remember, Ennis Freedom's on a minimum deal. Like the deal, like there's nobody you could trade they don't have a lot of mid-level money guys.
Right.
Marcus is their most tradable asset, or Josh Richardson. Schroder, yeah. But what are you going to get back when he's going to be a free agent? So there's a lot of going on, but they don't have that like guy on a nice little $9 million contract that you can kind of move. It makes it easy to trade. Some of these would be difficult.
But there have
I
been
would love
rumors
to be on
about
that
Schroder as
980.
well, though. Haven't there been rumors about Schroder potentially being considered? So who would you want? Like, what would you want for him?
Ugh. Somebody who ain't going to turn the damn ball over 4 times in 4 minutes.
Other than, yeah.
Let's start. I guess I'll start there.
Yeah.
No, I don't. And Gary, you jump in here too, but I don't. I just don't think you're going to get much for him. I think if you can get a second round pick and maybe a player on an expiring contract, or just the pick itself, I think that's pretty much the best you're going to get, because even though he is a good scorer, the fact that he is on an expiring contract, the fact that what he's looking to do money-wise come offseason, and truth be told, I'm not sure teams are willing to pay him the kind of money he's want, because to me, a cautionary example of what happens to guys like Schroder is what happens with the guy we were just talking about a little while ago, Evan Fournier. You don't want to be the Knicks and him be your Evan Fournier, a guy that you signed to this contract because he scored the ball really well, but then you get him in your roster and you realize, oh, damn, he turns the ball over a lot. Oh, damn, he makes bad decisions defensively, gambles a lot. Oh, damn. How much are we paying him again? Oh, heck. Yeah. That's the fear, I think, and concern with Schroder. So I think if you can get anything of some semblance of value, whether it's cash, because we take cash, they take Venmo, the Celtics will take cash.
You take Bitcoin yet?
Not yet. Working on it. But if you could get, but in all seriousness, if you could get something of some semblance of value for him, you take that. He obviously is someone who does not fit into their long-term plans. And when you look at the last few games, we talk about how they've been smashing teams. He has been a negative plus minus the last couple of games, even though they won those games by damn near 30 points each. So that on a night when pretty much everyone else who plays for the Celtics is a positive. So little things like that make teams, I think, at a minimum, pause before they go cannonballing into the pool of trying to make a splash, and that he did a Schroder. So
yeah,
you about to say something, Gary? Okay.
No, I just think I'm not how do I put this? I think Schroder can't serve a purpose. I think it's tough. I think the situation's tough. The dude can play, he can score, but I think he needs to be a starter. I think his role as coming off the bench to be like, I think that Oklahoma City thing might have just been an exception to the rule. Like, he was very good that year in Oklahoma City, and I think that fooled the Celtics a little bit to think that he could be that 6th man of the year candidate. And his numbers aren't as good as a starter. Off the bench. They're considerably less. And I just think if you're not going to start him, you might as well move him. Because I don't think him coming off the bench and being that like lightning bolt scoring guy is going to work, because he just doesn't seem to have the umph to really contribute. Like, I'm looking at his numbers as a starter, 18.6 points a game. As a bench guy with 10 minutes left, 9.5 points. His field goal percentage as a starter, 48.6. As a reserve, 34.2. 3-point percentage as a starter, 38.1. As a reserve, 28.3. Like, it's, offensive rating as a starter, 114. As a reserve, 93. Like, he's not, it just isn't working as a reserve. Now, do you think, could it change? But I think if you can get something for him, if you can get a prospect for him and a pick, I don't know if you're going to get a first rounder because of expiring contract, but if you can get a prospect and a pick or something, or 2 second-round picks, Like, I think you might have to do it. Not, oh, I want him out of here, anything like that. But I don't know if it's working out, and you're not going to start him. And as we've seen, him and Marcus on the court together is not good. Like, it's sort of disastrous. Because teams, the Celtics are easier to guard because Schroder isn't that knockdown shooter. When he gets hot, he's good. Very good when he gets hot. It's when he's not hot. And I think we've seen from the beginning of the season, there's just been some shots, 16-footer that most NBA guards hit. He misses them. The mid-range shots, the driving into the paint and seeing that, boom, miss. Like, damn, that's an open shot. Wow. Like, most NBA players, guards especially, from 16 feet in the elbow, they're money, right? Not like Ben Simmons or nothing, but I'm talking about like most NBA guards. Schroder has just not been quite up to task, but when he starts, 19 points a game, 38% from three. It's crazy, but are you going to start him? You're not starting him in the backcourt with Marcus, right? Like, that might not go well because there are minutes together, especially in the fourth quarter, when neither teams do not respect either their long-range shooting, so they're doubling and blitzing Jalen and Jason and packing in the paint. Makes it harder. Maybe that New York game, now one of those guys are hot. It's different, but that don't happen every game. So I think if you're the Celtics, you have to consider moving Schroder. I think they will move Schroder. Not because they don't like him back, nothing like that. It's because the fit and you have Peyton Pritchard who can help out or whatever. It just doesn't seem like he's had very little to do with these 4 wins and these blowout wins.
Yeah, I agree. Looking ahead a little bit, and we touched on this a bit earlier. The Celtics have an interesting week where they can definitely start making some legit ground on those teams ahead of them. You got Charlotte on Wednesday, Detroit on Friday. I will be there. And I believe, Gary, you're going to be there too?
Tell Lauren I said hi.
I will. You're not going to Detroit?
Lauren Williams, yeah.
Yeah, Lauren Williams.
Yeah, MLive.com.
Yeah, she should still be in Boston. She should still be working here.
Oh yeah, that's the whole.
We'll save that for the off-camera conversations.
So you're going to Detroit. Oh boy.
Are you not going, Gary?
I'm not going on that trip. Thank God I ain't got to see the Love Fest for
Sherrod. My God. The video of Gary, which if people didn't see on Twitter, Sherrod posted a video in Atlanta when they went to cover that game. Gary was very mad about the snow.
It was snowing in Atlanta. Like, what is going on here? It's like the apocalypse.
Gary and I have been to Atlanta, I would say, on a regular basis for the last 20 years. Yeah. I've never seen snow. I've never seen snow in Atlanta.
Yeah. It was sticking. I mean, now it's stopped. Sticking. But it was like, it is snowing in Atlanta. Like, what's going on?
Gary was pissed.
Yeah. I don't blame him. It was
as I said, it wasn't
Boston to go to a warmer climate and it snows of all places. So I get it. But it was funny.
Yeah, Gary was hot. So are you going to Orlando? They're in Orlando on Sunday.
I'll be in Brooklyn.
He going to the good games if you didn't understand.
I'll be in Brooklyn. But I'll be in Detroit. They go to Detroit again later in February. I will be on that right after the All-Star break. I'll be on that trip, Detroit and Indiana, but will not be in the D this time for your comeback, reunited. It feels so good.
Reunited and it feels
here's the thing about I was in Detroit basically the entire time when they were good, like in the early 2000s. Like when they go into the conference finals or NBA finals every year, I was there. And they're my peoples. Shout out to my boy Ben Wallace. And Rasheed Wallace, and Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, my man.
Just name the whole 2014. Let's go ahead.
Darvin Ham.
We got time.
Shout out to Darvin. Shout out to Lindsey Hunter.
The viewers ain't got nothing to do but to hear
Lindsey Hunter, who, by the way, was a Celtic for a hot minute. For a very hot minute. Lindsey Hunter was a Celtic.
Yeah, let's name the rest of the roster, the trainers.
I'm apologizing on behalf of the Celtics fans that are listening.
Darko, who was a Celtic. For a little more than a hot minute. Yeah. So don't hate Gary. Don't hate.
Were you going to ask about the next few games coming up and what we thought about them? Is that where you were going, or you
No,
just
I'm
want to
just
talk about
I'm just letting folks know that the Celtics going to be hosting
In
Charlotte
Detroit.
on Wednesday, and they'll be on the road at Detroit on Friday, at Orlando on Sunday, and at Brooklyn on Tuesday. But before we leave, what you got coming up this week, Connie?
So on Thursday, I'll be doing a live shot on the Hub Today, my first live shot ever. Well, not my first one, I guess my second one. And then on
Now,
Friday,
how tall are you going to be? How tall are you going to be? Are you going to be 6'7" like you are right now?
yes, I'm gonna wear heels and have a step on a box. No, I'll probably
6'7" Kwani ain't no joke, y'all. I'm just letting y'all know.
But also on Friday, we're going to be live from Neshoba Valley on NBC 10 for the Hub Today, which is a rarity, but that's also the day the Olympics start. So there's a lot going on with NBC. We have the Super Bowl, we have the Olympics. So Friday should be fun too. If you can tune in at 11:30 on Thursday and Friday, you'll see me.
Okay. I will. And I'll have something to say too to you on the next day, of course.
Of course, yeah.
What you got coming up, G?
More Celtic coverage, a column on Tom Brady in Wednesday's Boston Globe about his retirement, and some stuff. If you guys haven't read up on the Brian Flores story, which is kind of upstaging the Tom Brady retirement, that's
a podcast episode in itself.
Yeah,
we don't got time to get into that.
It's about to get real interesting about
it's about to get real.
NFL hiring practices, et cetera, et cetera. It's about to. I think Flores might have just jumped on the fire, jumped into the fire. He jumped into something and he might be sacrificing the rest of his career with this lawsuit, like a Kurt Flood. He might be taking the bullets for all the future coaching candidates of people of color and women too. Let's not forget about women of color and women who could be NFL coaching candidates down the road. He might be taking the bullet for him because this seems like, so I'll be writing about that. And obviously the Celtics, Charlotte game tomorrow. Our friend Mark Spears just tweeted Gordon Hayward's out of the protocol, but will not play tomorrow. He would not have his return. So I think that's like 5 out of 6 games or something like that. 4 out of 5 games that Gordon could have played in Boston, or 3 out of 4, something like that. Gordon could have played against the Celtics, but didn't and come back. So he will not be playing tomorrow for Charlotte. So big game for the Celtics, though. And their injury report, just the same 2 guys, PJ Dozier and Bol, no new injuries. So they should be completely healthy. And this is one of the bigger – I thought the New Orleans game was one of the bigger games of the season because of what happened in Atlanta. And then before all the injuries, I thought the Miami game was a really big game. They took care of business. I think this is a really, really big game. You get this, you get Detroit, you get Orlando, then you start building some wins, and you're not approaching, you're getting back to 500. You're really trying to make a run.
Good stuff. Well,
what about you, Ebony?
Look. We ain't got time to go through all my jobs. We be here all night going through all
10 hours later.
Got school.
I meant to ask Kwani, did she watch the Janet Jackson doc?
You know what's so funny? My TV is paused. It's on sleep mode right now, but it's queued up because I was going to start it. Okay. We're going to talk about that next week.
We'll talk about that next week.
I'm excited.
I love Janet.
That's your homework too. You're going to watch that as well.
I love Janet.
I saw it. Very good.
Yeah?
No, very good. Very good.
Okay. I'm excited. I've been
had
it
don't spoil it for us, Gary. Don't.
No, this is very good.
Yeah.
Okay. I ain't spoiling nothing.
Okay. That's exciting. Well, this has been another great episode in the books. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do so. Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast. For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani A. Lunis. We'll be back next week with an episode of the A-List Podcast.